joining this morning. Today we're going to be talking about navigating the food environment during a pandemic, so during COVID-19. Some of this information you may be familiar with. We've been experiencing COVID-19 for a few weeks now, but we're going to cover all of the bases just so that everyone's on the same page and that we make sure that everyone feels comfortable. Okay, so this is our agenda for today. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of how I think a lot of us are feeling right now, just a little bit stressed and not sure what to do next or where to turn when it comes to food and cooking. We are going to go through tracking, planning to shop, navigating the store, unpacking your groceries, meal planning, mindless eating, making food last, ordering food, as well as some additional resources and tips. And at the very end, I have a slide with my contact information. So if you have any questions after this session, please feel free to contact me. So the first step when it comes to, keeping things organized in your kitchen is really tracking. And what I mean by this is keeping a master inventory for your freezer, fridge, and pantry. So you'll see on the left-hand side of this slide, there's a freezer inventory checklist. There's a similar pantry and refrigerator one that come along with this, and I have uploaded that PDF as well in the file section. This is really helpful in keeping you on track with what you actually have in your house. So a lot of times, I know for myself, I feel like, I don't really have anything to make for dinner, or there's nothing to eat. By keeping track of what you actually do have, you may be surprised at the amount that you've got stockpiled. It's also really helpful when you're running low on things that you're able to see right away, okay, I don't have any more of this. Using the first in, first out method is the best way to kind of use up your inventory. So what that means is simply using the oldest food first. So if you had 3 cans of tuna and at the grocery store you bought another can, you would use those older 3 cans first. And using fresh produce before it goes bad. This is another really important part of the inventory method, is taking note of what will last a little bit longer and what things may need to be used first. So for example, if you bought carrots, they may last quite a bit of time in your refrigerator, whereas lettuce may go bad sooner. So you may want to use up the lettuce in some of your recipes or in some of your meals before you use up all of the carrots. Keeping a going list of items you run out of or are running low on can really help with this as well. So keep a piece of paper on your fridge or in your kitchen somewhere where you can quickly jot down and add to a list of things that you're starting to run out of when you notice them. One of the key things, particularly during a pandemic, is not running to the store as soon as you run out. So where you normally might just run to the store when you run out of milk, or normally would run to the store if, I wanted to make this and I'm out of broccoli. Use this as an opportunity if you're out of one thing to get creative and come up with an alternative meal or snack idea, come up with an alternative ingredient that you can use. And we will talk a little bit more about that as we continue on. Planning to shop. So obviously you're keeping track of things. The next step is when you go to the store, how do you do that? So the first thing is really deciding how often and who is going to the store. So once you determine who's that household grocery shopper and how often they're going, this will help dictate what you need to include on your list. So when you're making your list, I recommend checking it twice, maybe even 3 times, because you don't want to have to make an additional trip to the store or miss out on something that you actually really did need. When you're making your list, the easiest thing is to start with those items that you kept note of that you were running out of or running low on. Add any staples that you usually buy week to week, things like bread, milk, eggs, other regular grocery items. Then look and add recipe ingredient needs. So if you know you're going to make certain dishes in a week, add those ingredients to your list and consider doubling some of your recipes. So maybe you're making lasagna this week, you might make 2 and then freeze one for later. And in that case, you would add those ingredients to your list. This is a really good strategy so that you don't have to cook every single night and that you have some ready to eat meals in your freezer, or that you can pull from when you're running lower on groceries. Next, you want to add any household supplies, so things that you would normally purchase at a grocery store like tissues, dish soap, laundry soap, those sorts of things. These can tend to get forgotten in our list, so that's why I always kind of make a note to put them on that grocery item list. Lastly, you want to include quantities. So this comes full circle back to how often you're shopping, because you want to have quantities to last until your next grocery trip. So if right now you're grocery shopping a little less frequently than you normally would, say normally go every week and you get 1 bag of milk, if you're going bi-weekly, you may need to get 2 bags of milk. So you want to make sure that you're upping those quantities on your list if you are choosing to shop less frequently. So then when you get to the store, there are a few things that we want to do just to stay safe at this time. So obviously keeping your distance from other shoppers and staff. And at this point, there are often very helpful signs on the floor or kind of spots to mark different distances to keep from shoppers and staff. The other thing you may note is arrows. So trying your best to kind of follow those arrows or those signs that are on the floor to help keep your distance and make sure that you feel safe, as well as all the other shoppers and staff in the store feel safe. If possible, trying to avoid peak times to reduce crowds. I know this is a little bit difficult at this time because our typical grocery peaks don't seem to be the same as they used to be. But one thing that I've been finding very helpful is if you have multiple grocery stores in your area, doing a quick drive-by. So if I drive by one store and it looks quite busy, I may just go to an alternative grocery store for this shop. Sanitizing the grocery cart. Luckily, most stores are doing this for us right now, so it's not something that you need to worry too much about. Just making sure that you're taking one of the carts or baskets that's designated to be sanitized or cleaned. Avoiding touching your face. So this is a really big one. We normally, may touch our face multiple times in a day and not really notice it, particularly if you wear glasses or anything like that. It's really easy to be adjusting. So just trying to make a note, okay, I'm going grocery shopping. I'm not going to touch anything until I get home. And washing or sanitizing your hands before handling your credit card or other personal items. This may not always be possible, but one thing just to keep in mind is when you get home, you may want to wash your hands right away. There may be something that you want to sanitize. So for example, if you had to, touch something or insert your credit card, just keeping in mind some of those personal items. Another thing you may notice at the store is the supply versus demand, and this seems to be getting much better, but everything on your list may not be in stock, and we have to kind of make do with what's available at that time. It's not always easy to think of, the alternatives when you're in the store and you were looking for fresh green beans and they're just not there, or you were looking for a certain item and it's not there. So I like to just kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and think to myself, okay, this item is not here in the grocery store, so maybe I needed broccoli for a stir fry. What can I use instead? Maybe I can use some green beans and some peppers instead. So just making sure to take a step back, not worrying if something's out of stock, but really just, thinking pragmatically, what else can I get or what else can I use? So if the frozen version is not there, since frozen fruits and vegetables seem to be really popular right now, take a look for the fresh or canned version. The other thing that you can do is freeze your own fresh fruits or vegetables to make them last longer. So, if you were going to buy frozen strawberries and they're all out of them, you could buy fresh strawberries, slice them up, and freeze them so that they would last for 2 weeks, for example. Grains, things like pasta or rice, it's a great opportunity to try a new grain or noodle. Check the international and gluten-free aisles as well for some alternatives. They may be better stocked than your traditional grain aisle. If you can't find milk, you could look for milk alternatives, soy, rice, coconut, or almond. Again, a great opportunity to explore new flavors and new foods. Particular vegetables and fruits, just like I mentioned earlier on, you can swap it for a similar one or try a new vegetable if you haven't, tried one and you see one in the store. When it comes to things like meats, things like chicken, for example, you can look for alternative cuts. So if you're looking for chicken breast, you can absolutely use chicken thighs or get a whole chicken and then cut it up yourself. You can look for tofu or other legumes. It really depends on the recipe. For ground beef, you could try ground pork, ground turkey, veggie ground rounds. You can even use lentils or mushrooms in certain recipes. So make like a lentil bolognese sauce instead of one with beef if you're having trouble finding the one that you normally purchase. So once you've made it safely through the store, you've gotten back to your car, on your way home, it comes to unpacking the groceries. There's been a lot of different information and misinformation out there about what you need to do when you get home. I've heard everything from leaving things on your porch for 3 days to using different sanitizers. And it just comes back to simple practices that we would do normally anyways. So placing your groceries in one location of the kitchen is the best practice. Wash your hands as soon as you get in the door. So that's nothing new, I don't think, for any of us. Rinsing fresh produce under cold running water before storing. So maybe you previously had just kind of thrown everything into your fridge. I know that's definitely what I used to do prior to COVID-19. But the best practice these days is, if you can, rinsing everything, putting it away. That's really helpful as well because it makes it really easy to grab a healthy apple for a snack because it's already washed. So once you've put away all of your produce, you can sanitize the area where you placed your groceries. So I like to put them just at the front door when I come in, and then I just kind of wipe it down, and then washing your hands once you've put your groceries away. So it's just that simple. Some people may choose to rinse off or wash the outside of food containers. So for example, if you've got a bag of milk or a container of yogurt, or transfer certain bulk foods to alternative containers. So for example, some people prefer to transfer their cereal from the box into a container. This has not been a general recommendation as something that's required, but obviously it's up to you with what you feel most comfortable with when it comes to your groceries. The one thing that you want to avoid is applying any sort of chemicals, bleach, or sanitizing solutions to foods that you're going to consume. So please do not do that. A little bit of water and friction is all that you need to rinse off your fresh produce or rinse off anything that you are going to be consuming. Okay, so you've gotten home, you've got all this great food in your fridge. What are you going to make with it? This actually goes back to before shopping. So plan some ideas before you shop. You don't have to have an elaborate meal plan, but come up with, maybe a list of a few things that you want to make. So one of the things I like to do is come up with a master meal list. So this may be a long list of all the different kinds of meals that you like to make that that your family likes, and then maybe pick 2 or 3 of them to make that week. Check them off as you go. So I usually put a check mark next to my master meal list, and this just helps me get out of that funk of making the same thing for dinner every Tuesday night. So you know that you've made mac and cheese and sloppy joes this week. Maybe next week you're going to try making chili and curry chicken. So just kind of gives you that ability to mix it up as well. Do some meal and snack prep as if you were going to the office or going to school. So I know that may sound silly, but if you pre-portion containers or chop some things up ahead of time, it really does help during the week and helps make it easy to grab something nutritious from your fridge and make sure that that fresh produce is not going to waste. Set regular meal times to make sure that you still have your routine and your structure throughout the day. So I know that we may be getting up at different times, that our schedules may be a little bit out till lunch on certain days, but if we can try and keep a regular routine where, normally if we were going to work, maybe we'd have breakfast at 8:30 and lunch at 12:30. If we can kind of keep a bit of that routine element in our days, it really helps to structure not only our meals, but the rest of our activities throughout the day. One of the things that I've heard a lot about is mindless eating during this time. So it naturally makes sense. We're out of our typical routines, even as much as we try and maintain one, if that's kind of us. We may not have as many things to keep us preoccupied, so we may find ourselves snacking a little bit more. Some of the things that we can do are just checking in before we eat. So asking ourselves the question, am I hungry? Or am I bored? Am I stressed? What's kind of going on? Really acknowledging how you're feeling and what you may need at that time. So if you ask yourself, am I hungry? And the answer is, you know what? I don't know if I'm really physically hungry right now. Pick an alternative activity to try. Something that's 5 minutes long, nothing elaborate. It could be playing with your pet or going for a walk around the block, doing a 5-minute stretch video on the internet, and then check in with yourself again. So if you've tried an activity, I've gone for a walk around the block and I still feel like eating something, allow yourself to have a snack. Portion it out, don't eat it from the bag, put it on a plate and consume it without distraction. So sitting down at a table, not watching TV, not on your phone. So really allowing yourself to have that snack, to enjoy it, to acknowledge what you need in that moment, and not feeling guilty about it. We are going to be eating differently during this time. We're not in our typical routines. We don't have to necessarily get up and get dressed and go to the office in the morning. So it's okay to enjoy those snacks and enjoy some of those comfort foods, but just allowing yourself that opportunity to check in before you make that move towards having that snack. So one other strategy when it comes to foods and grocery shopping is making foods last. So how do we make things last a little bit longer so that we're not going to the store 3 or 4 times a week, maybe if we normally did that, or once a week if we're trying to go less than that. So one of the things that I found to be successful is serving smaller portions of the items that you have less of and rounding it out with the items that you have more of. So for example, your typical salad, you may put 2 cups of lettuce with some tomatoes and cucumbers in it, but I'm running low on some of those items, or I don't have any of those things in my fridge. You could do a salad with shredded cabbage, carrots, and radishes, like more of a coleslaw type salad. So you're kind of swapping out some of those short-lasting ingredients for longer-lasting ones. You can also extend meat by blending it with legumes, grated vegetables, or tofu. So if you're finding that you're running low on meat, or it's harder to find meat in the grocery store, it's a great way to boost your fiber and your vegetable intake as well. Some other things that you can try are things like using a flax or a chia egg in baking recipes, so using some of those swaps, and that way you're saving some of those whole eggs for eating if that's something that you're running low on. So to make a flax or a chia egg, it's really easy. It's 1 tablespoon of ground flax or chia seed with 3 tablespoons of water. All you have to do is whisk it and let it sit for a minute. Ordering food is another thing that's come up as being a little bit more difficult at this time. That being said, I think it really is important that we are supporting particularly local businesses, as well as giving ourselves a break from always having to cook meals and give ourselves a little bit of a treat, something to look forward to by ordering food in once in a while or enjoying takeout. When you do order food in, remove the food from the packaging before you eat it. So maybe putting it on one of your typical dinner plates and then washing your hands after handling the packaging. So that's the best practice when it comes to getting takeout or getting food that's been prepared. Again, nothing too complicated, and it actually makes it feel kind of fancy if you're eating your Chinese takeout on like your China dishes. So it's something fun to look forward to. And safer options when it comes to takeout food is always, again, food that's stored in an open display case or things that may be less handled. But overall, ordering food has not been shown to be a high risk thing. Restaurants and grocery stores are obviously practicing the very utmost standards when it comes to preparing food safely. So now we're getting to the resources and tips section. I know there was a lot of information in here. So I'm just going to go over a few additional things that may be helpful that you can kind of refer back to. So the first is just kind of a general what to stock list. So fridge and produce, pantry and freezer. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but just kind of a general overview of some of the things that you may want to keep on hand or that you may put on your regular grocery list. Easy baking swaps. So going back to if you're out of something, or if you're trying to bake and you can't find it at the grocery store, these are some really easy swaps that you can do at home, as well as some easy cooking swaps. So again, if you're out of something, you can't find it, looking up some of these swaps, these are just a few, but there's tons and tons of them available on the internet. The other thing that we have is lots of great resources that have recently been uploaded to our food services site. So it's just uwaterloo.ca/food services, and we have a nutrition and resources section. So in this area, you'll find really easy recipes, as well as some kitchen and grocery tools for meal planning, grocery shopping, food inventories. And in particular, we have a section that's specific to COVID-19, so further information about food safety and storage. So some of the recipes that you can download, we've got 5-ingredient baking recipes, great for snacking, pantry dinner options and pantry lunch options. Some of the kitchen and grocery tools, so a nutritious grocery checklist, that freezer pantry inventory, as I mentioned, was uploaded to this file section. We've got a template for a menu planner as well. And under our COVID-19 resources and links, you'll find information on balanced meals and snacks, some additional meal planning support, and information on food safety, food storage from Health Canada, as well as some other reputable Dietitians of Canada sites, as well as some recipe and cooking tips and more tips on mindful eating. So thank you so much for attending and listening. This is my contact information. Emailing me is usually the easiest way to get in touch, as well as I do have an Instagram if you would like to follow me. Sometimes I post different recipes or tips on there, and we will answer some questions now.